Privet moi druzy. Hello, my friends. Welcome and thank you for taking your time to listen to this update on Ukraine. Today is day 322. Okay, today we're going to talk about SOLEDAR again. We'll update what's happened and why it's happening. We'll talk about Russian artillery being down in percentage, like they're not firing as much Russian artillery. Zelenskyy speaks to the Golden Globes. We'll talk about a little fun with Russian state media along the way. We'll talk about Ukrainians being trained on U.S. Patriot systems. PODOLIAK projects wars end in 2023, and we'll talk about what's going on there. The Russian border being closed, we're still looking at that. It's about to happen. And finally, a new Russian commander in Ukraine. Thank you for joining me. Here we go. But first, a comment from Ryan Gerber. 3238. I pared down my Ukraine news sources. As my wife pointed out, it was getting to be a bit much. I understand. The struggle is real. I had to keep your channel, though. Thank you for that. Concise to the point coverage of the news that I want to hear. Hints for language. Speed up and blend the sounds. Then it sounds more authentic. In English, we don't pronounce the sounds of the words. We blend them when speaking. Great effort, though. Well, thank you for the great effort. I will do my best to do this. And I understand the context because having grown up near New York, we talk about Long Island, like almost like it's one word, not Long Island, right? So I'll try to do that on the close. Okay, here we go with the news of the day. So SOLEDAR, I talked about, was hit 86 times with various artillery systems yesterday. So here's what's going on. So the Wagner Group has filmed itself in salt mines beneath the area. And Prigozhin is taking a victory lap already. Prigozhin, the controversial Russian entrepreneur, sanctioned by many Western nations, claimed on Tuesday evening that Wagner Group had seized full control of SOLEDAR, with only a pocket of Ukrainian resistance remaining inside the city. There was a cauldron in the center of town where urban fighting is taking place, he said in a statement released by his company, and will announce the number of prisoners tomorrow. So he's taking a victory lap. Again, where is SOLEDAR and why does it matter? Well, here's SOLEDAR, and it matters because the Russians have actually gained quite a bit of ground. But as I pointed out yesterday, this was January 1st. And look, here's SOLEDAR, and here's Bakhmut down here. And look at how much ground that they've taken. Wow, it's pretty amazing in just the span of a week or so. But it's all farmland except for this little city of SOLEDAR, this little town. And so they've taken a lot of farm fields, that kind of thing. So yesterday I was talking about, not a lot to see here, but it could be something, and it's kind of a victory for them. This is Zelenskyy just 2 days ago. I thank all of our warriors who defend our Bakhmut and demonstrate maximum resilience. I thank all the warriors in SOLEDAR who withstand new and even tougher attacks of the occupiers. It is extremely difficult. There are almost no whole walls left. Due to the resistance of our warriors there in SOLEDAR, we have gained additional time and additional power for Ukraine. And what did Russia want to gain there? Everything is completely destroyed. There is almost no life left, and thousands of their people were lost. The whole land near SOLEDAR is covered with the corpses of the occupiers and scars from the strikes. This is what madness looks like. So they've been chipping away at SOLEDAR, just sending body after body. And here's Radio Free Europe. This was yesterday's. Ukrainian troops hold the eastern town of SOLEDAR. Ukrainian forces are holding out in the eastern mining town despite the massive Russian onslaught. Hanna Mayer, the deputy defense minister, said the enemy disregards the heavy losses of its personnel and continues to storm actively. The approaches to our positions are simply strewn with the bodies of dead enemy fighters. Capturing SOLEDAR and its salt mines would have symbolic military and commercial value for Russia and would be Moscow's most substantial gain in months. This is why they're doing it. Think about it. The Russians haven't gained anything since like July when they conquered Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and then a few other things along the way. But those were the two big prizes, and it was back in July. It's been 6 months almost since they've actually had something of substance. Okay. Intense fighting, this is today, reported in Ukraine's SOLEDAR as Kremlin tamps down victory claims. Huh? Wait a minute. The Kremlin takes victory laps even when there's no victory, when they're making it up. Why would they tamp it down? Okay. The town is not under control of the Russian Federation. There are fierce battles going on now. Sergei Cheneretevi, the spokesperson for the Eastern Military Command, said. So they don't actually have it yet. contrary to Prigozhin's claim. The Ukrainian General Staff claimed on January 11th that Russia had lost about 490 soldiers in the previous day and probably about the same amount over the last few days. So they've really lost a lot here in the process of taking a place that nobody actually cares about. This is what's called a Pyrrhic victory. So a Pyrrhic victory is this: a very costly victory wherein considerable losses outweigh the gain so as to render the struggle not worth the cost. And it comes from the Greeks. The original Pyrrhic victory came courtesy of Pyrrhus of Epirus, a Greek king who was undone by his costly battles against the Romans, right? So he won the battle, but he lost the war. That's what a Pyrrhic victory is. Okay, now the Moscow Times is also talking about the same thing. Now, Moscow Times is not Russian state media, okay? So it's something different. It's independent news. Ukraine war, Kyiv disputes Wagner's SOLEDAR capture claim. And when we go down in here, we see this. The Kremlin said on Wednesday it was important not to rush to declare victory in SOLEDAR, which is really fascinating to me, especially when they rush to declare victory in something that they made up. Like, like the missile attack that didn't actually kill anyone just a few days ago. So it's not important not to rush to declare victory in SOLEDAR hours after Russia's mercenary group Wagner claimed that it had seized control of the town in eastern Ukraine. Let's not rush. Let's wait for official announcements, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, adding that there was a positive dynamic in advances in SOLEDAR and saluted the heroism of our fighters. So I really find this fascinating. It's more telling that they're saying this than about anything else that they could say, based on the way that they have acted in the past. So, okay, that's all with that. Okay, let's turn our attention to this article. This is today in CNN Politics. Russian artillery fire down nearly 75%, U.S. officials say. That's fascinating because the Russian way of war is, instead of, drive into the city and try to take it, clear it, block by block, blow up the city, destroy the whole thing, and then sift through the rubble and see what's left. They can't do that if they're out of artillery, or if they're low on missiles, they can't continue to harass. So they're now having to constrict what they're doing. 11 months into the war, U.S. and Ukrainian officials tell CNN Russia's artillery fire is down dramatically from its wartime high, in some places by as much as 75%. So it's not across the board 75%, but in some places. Russia may be rationing artillery rounds due to low supplies, or it could be part of a broader reassessment. Now, regardless of the reason, artillery is down, and that's actually a really good thing for the soldiers on the ground. Okay, let's turn our attention to another topic, the Golden Globes. Zelenskyy declares to the Golden Globe viewers there will be no third world war. It's not a trilogy. It's a great line. Now, why is he talking to the Golden Globes? Like, shouldn't he keep his eye on the ball about Ukraine? He is, and he's doing what his job is, which is to make sure that Ukraine is front and center in the attention in the world so that his allies stay with him, and he's doing a masterful job. By the way, he's looking like, he's wearing a sweatshirt like a bouncer in a bar, or whatever it is. Stupid stuff that Tucker Carlson said about him. He's dressed the right way. Okay, here it is. Zelenskyy then addressed the audience after being introduced by Sean Penn via a recorded message recalling the start of the Golden Globes in 1944. The Second World War wasn't over yet, but the tide was turned. All knew who would win. There were still battles and tears ahead, and it was when the Golden Globes Awards appeared to honor the best performers of 1943, Zelenskyy said. It's now 2023. The war in Ukraine is not over, but the tide is turning, and it's already clear who will win. There are still battles and tears ahead, but now I can definitely tell you who the people are, who the best in the previous year. It was you, the free people of the free world, those who united around the support of free Ukrainian people in our common struggle for freedom. Wow, he's just so eloquent in putting this together and tying people together where we're part of the same thing. We're part of the same team. He does such a great job with that. The audience cheered when Zelenskyy announced his projected victory, and he concluded there will be no third world war. It is not a trilogy. Ukraine will stop the Russian aggression on our land. Wow, great stuff. And he got his media announcement out there to keep this front and center and relevant to the rest of the world. So I think it was a great use of his time to be able to give that speech in that venue. Okay, defense news talking about Ukrainian troops heading to Oklahoma, Fort Sill, for Patriot missile training. 100 Ukrainian soldiers are set to begin training on the Patriot missile system as soon as next week. 100 troops are scheduled for this training. This is a U.S. Patriot battery. That's how many troops you need to do this. So this is a very complex system. And so getting this out, and people have asked multiple times now, well, why isn't the U.S. just giving them everything they need? They have to walk a fine line. They're giving them, this is going to sound probably wrong, but it's almost like how I deal as a parent with my teenagers. I give them more freedom as they demonstrate that they can competently steward their responsibilities, right? So think about it. If they just gave a bunch of munitions right away and then it fell into the wrong hands, or it fell to the Russians or whatever, that would have been a bad scenario. But the U.S. and Western allies have given more and more as the Ukrainians have proved themselves. And as one U.S. Defense Department official said, the Ukrainians have been a 12 on a 10-point scale. They have just done a great job with this. Advisor to the head of the president's office, Mikhailo Podolyak, said that he's predicting the war to end in 2023. He said very briefly and clearly, first, the war will end in 2023. This is important since for us, delay is a very bad scenario, a very bad process. That's right. He wants it to end. But what he's saying is he wants it to end, not that it will end. He's saying why he wants it to end. So Podolyak said if the war drags on, people will grow tired in parallel because people want to understand what will happen tomorrow, where they will live, whether they'll be shelled again, where their children will go to school. If they don't understand that the moralization and desire to leave will gradually set in, I personally don't want the war to drag on because there will be the next stage when our children will go to war. That's a great point. We are not ready for our children to go and die because Russia will not stop. It's fundamental for her to destroy Ukraine. So he said it will end in 2023, and he said why he wants it to, but he didn't actually give any real reasons that it would, here is what's going to happen to cause it to end. And I want it to end too. I don't see the same thing that he sees. And I hope that I'm wrong. Please prove me wrong. Ukrainian army, please prove me wrong. Okay, another article. This was really interesting for two reasons, and I'll tell you the first one is just because if the border closes, that's a big sign. Okay, so January 9th, Russia restricts exit from the country for those liable for military service. The order was sent by the Russian FSB to all border departments of the country. The main intelligence agency of the Ministry of Ukraine has said. Now, the Ukrainian government had generally been truthful about all these kinds of things, which is why I'm showing you this. I wouldn't show it to you otherwise because I tried to verify. And when I tried to verify, I didn't find any particular document somewhere from the Russians saying this. But it just doesn't mean that just because I haven't found it, it's not there. So it may very well be there. I'm going based on the previous record of truthfulness that I've seen from the Ukrainians and showing you this. Does that make sense? So he quotes something from the FSB of the Russian Security Service, but I can't prove it. So I'm telling you, my gut tells me it's coming down the pike, but this is my gut. I can't verify this just yet, but we'll see in just a few weeks, I'm sure. This article is absolutely fascinating to my mind. Russia appoints Gerasimov as top commander in Ukraine. So one guy's in only just a few months ago, and now he's out. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu appointed Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov on Wednesday to oversee Russia's military campaign. Sergei Sergovin, nicknamed General Armageddon, again, he was appointed just before Berzan, and now he's out. Well, he's now actually going to be a deputy is what's going to happen. He will remain on as Gerasimov's deputy. So who's Gerasimov? I'm not familiar with him, so I had to look him up. He's a Russian army general serving as the chief of the general staff. So why is the chief of the general staff going to be in charge of Ukraine? That's probably a sign that things aren't going according to plan. You know how they always talk about how everything's going according to plan. They lie about that constantly. But I found this absolutely fascinating because I've told you this before. I've told you, look, there's a hot war, there's an economic war, there's a political war, there's a technological war, there's an informational war. Read this line. Gerasimov was alleged to have conceived the Gerasimov Doctrine, combining military, technological, information, diplomatic, economic, cultural, and other tactics for the purpose of achieving strategic goals. We're going to see him try to do things within these kind of ranges, and I'll bring these up to the fore so that you can understand what's going on and why. So stay tuned and you'll see more about this guy, I'm sure, in the future. Okay, folks, if you want to inform yourself about Ukraine, you can read my book about Zelenskyy for free on Kindle Unlimited. If you want to contribute, you can give to Samaritan's Purse or you can give to United 24, and the links for all that are below. Please like or share if you've gotten some kind of value out of this. You can buy me a coffee if you wish to support my channel. And I want to end by saying thank you for supporting Ukraine. So here we go. I'm going to run it together real fast. Dyaku shoku vi bolevede za Ukrainiu. I hope that worked. All right. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.